Ladies and gentlemen, this is correspondent for SantaFe.com, Eric Davis, backstage of Frogfest 6, with Bill Palmer, one of the legends of Frogville Records. And correct me if I'm wrong, you've played every single Frogfest.
Yes.
You just got off the stage a little while ago with, was this your debut performance?
Yes.
Bill and the Dinosaurs, Bill Palmer and the Dinosaurs?
Yep.
I have to say, with total honesty, that was one of the most amazing sets of music I've seen in this town since I moved here, and probably in the last 10 years.
You're kidding.
That was awesome, dude.
Oh man, thanks.
I was standing out there with my mouth hang open, like I knew it was going to be good. Bill and I share musical tastes, but it was just transcendent set of music.
Well, thank you, Eric.
No, you're welcome. It really was. We all stood out there. It was a great thing. So talk a little bit about what you do with Frogville Records and kind of some of the other bands you play with besides Bill Palmer and the Dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've been pretty much the lead engineer at Frogville at the studio since before there was Frogville. We were making records on borrowed gear in the living room there, and just kind of played along. Basically, what happened is we kind of built this home studio, and I sort of was learning my chops as a producer and engineer, and always kind of knew, anybody who listens to records, kind of, if you really get into music, you really understand
boy, I wish I could do this.
Right. And so I started doing that just kind of because there wasn't anybody else to do it around, and a lot of musicians were coming to me. I was living in Austin, and I was trying to go back to Austin, and people would come and say, "Oh man, can't you make a record for us before you go?" And I ended up, just kind of hanging around.
Isn't that amazing that you come from a music town like Austin and feel kind of a better thing? Because Santa Fe, for the size of this town, has an amazing amount of musicians, and the fact that you would think that this was a better place than Austin just kind of goes to prove that.
Well, I wouldn't say it was better. I would say that there was definitely a void that needed to be filled here. And I think, that's the beautiful thing about Santa Fe is we all kind of feel there's voids and we fill them. And if I was in Austin, I'd be one of 500 guys,
But here you're the man.
So here, and I was really cheap, I think we were making records in '03 at $10 an hour or something. And it just happened that people just kept coming, and I had some luck, because I put in, a lifetime basically, towards music and recording and writing and playing, and that was one of the things early on, is that I think being a musician, I knew the musicians, I could relate to them. We had this camaraderie together, and we just, it just kind of, something really cool happened, to get us to where we are now with the studio. But it was a lot of years of poverty and for me, and really just doing it because I loved it and because I was needed, And
off the top of your head, how many CDs do you have your name on? One roll or another?
I have no idea. I really couldn't tell you.
What, can you name some of your favorite things that you've either produced or played on since you've been here?
Yes. Early on, one of my favorite records, which still is one of my favorites, was maybe one of the first real records I made. It was Joe West, South Dakota Hairdo. That was one of my favorite records because I felt like I was in the game after we did that. It was like, yeah, we can do this. The John Courage record that we're finishing up right now is one of the best I've ever done. I did a record with my old band out of Austin called the Sharecroppers. We did a record a couple summers ago. The guys came up, and I was like, "Hey, I run the studio," and they came up, and we made a record together. And so that one was really good. God, Boris and the Salt Licks, Cactus Man versus Blue Demon was. The thing about a great record is that you live it. And so literally, it's like blood, sweat, and tears, It's like laughter and sorrow all together in a great record. Because everybody gets really into it and everybody really believes in it and loves it.
The magic happens.
The magic happens.
So tell me about this last record, correct me if I'm wrong, that I've heard you played every single instrument and produced it and engineered it.
Well, that's kind of why I put this band together, because I was hired to write some songs for a publishing company. And they gave me some money to do it, and I did this. I just basically went in the studio and I was like, well, I'm not going to pay anybody to play on it. I'm just going to play all the stuff myself and send it off and sell these songs. And they wanted me to do 4, and I ended up with 18. And so I did over the course of the summer, and so I just decided I was going to put out a CD. And
when's it come out?
Well, I've got them for sale up there.
Oh, they're done. They're finished.
I'm unsigned, so there isn't an official release or anything. I've got them for sale up there. They're available.
Okay, let's go back to the beginning. Your first, the first Frogfest you played was with 100 Year Flood, yes?
Yes.
You were with them for a number of years.
Many years, yes.
And they were always a Frogville and a Frogfest favorite.
There from day one. That was the first record that was made at Frogville. Big John Treadwell came to me and said, you know, hey man, I really like you guys. I know you need a record. I'd be happy to help you go into a studio here in town. And we were just like, well, where are we going to go? Why would we? All those things. There just wasn't anything available that suited what we needed. And so I suggested that we rent some gear, or actually borrow some gear, from my friend Lou and Behringer. And he brought some like D88s and like some PV preamps and some really cool, funky old stuff. And what he didn't have, we rented from the Candyman. And we set up, and over the course of 2 weeks, we recorded a record in Big John's living room. And that was 100 Year Flood, and Nathan Moore rolled into town around that time and was like, hey, this is awesome, we can do this, let's start a record label. And Nathan had a dog called Frog, and so then, you know, they named the label Frogville.
Wow.
And the studio has sort of always been associated with the record label, but I don't, you know, that's not necessarily the way I've always felt about it. I've always thought the studio was kind of its own thing, and the record label was its own thing. I mean, my tastes are definitely, you know, I mean, I love so many kinds of music. I think the record label's always kind of been one style, but I mean, I love making, I made a couple of heavy metal records last year that I absolutely loved, so. Well,
that's great, and obviously everybody in town now will have a chance to hear your music, not only the stuff that you produce for other people, but now a whole album full of stuff you did for yourself. And I think it's a good thing for this town. I think it's a good thing for the label, and it's just been a really pleasure talking to you. And this is.
I think what you're doing is a good thing for this town too.
Well, thank you, Eric Davis, signing off for SantaFe.com.
Thanks, Eric.
Backstage at Frogfest 6.